Ladies, don't drink your water. She poured something into your glass, said a homeless boy to whom I gave $10 for lunch 5 minutes ago. I looked up and asked my daughter-in-law, is it true? Do you want to poison me? She blushed, and I got mad. I called the waiter over and told them that I would remove the glass of water so that they would put it on my check. When I did the analysis in the laboratory, I was shocked by the result. If I drank this glass on this hot day, it would kill me. My name is Gina, I'm 58, and I've been called a lot of things in my life: housewife, widow, lucky, gold digger, once by a woman with cheap lipstick and cheaper morals, but easy to kill has never been on the list. The waiter thought I was joking. Ma'am, are you sure you want to buy the glass? He asked, staring at me like I'd just ordered a side of napkins and a salt shaker to go. I want this exact glass, I said, picking it up by the stem with my napkin like it was radioactive, on my bill with my name next to it. Gina Parker. Write it down. And bring me a clean one. Unseasoned, Sarah shifted in her chair. My future daughter-in-law. Blushing, trembling, eyes darting between me and the 10-year-old boy who'd appeared at my elbow like a streetwise guardian angel. He hovered there, dirty baseball cap, huge brown eyes, watching the glass like it might leap up and bite me. I saw her, he insisted, jabbing his finger in Sarah's direction. She put something from her purse in there when you went to the bathroom. The words hung over the restaurant's terrace like smoke. It was a beautiful afternoon, one of those too bright, too hot days when rich people pretend the sun won't fry them if they drink enough sparkling water. The white umbrellas, the potted olive trees, the polite hum of money. And me, the millionaire widow who used to be just the wife, holding a glass of murder like it was an overcooked appetizer. Sweetheart, Sarah said finally, giving the boy a brittle smile, you must be mistaken. Maybe you want more money. If she'd really wanted to convince me. She shouldn't have called him sweetheart in that tone. I know fake tenderness when I hear it. I raised 2 children and managed 300 union workers in a cannery. I can smell performance through steel and brine. Sit down, Sarah, I told her. If you move, I'll assume you're trying to leave before the police arrive, and I'm wearing my good shoes. I will absolutely chase you. The waiter cleared his throat. Ma'am, there's no need for, I am paying for this glass, I repeated calmly, and I'm taking it with me. You're going to wrap it up like it's grandma's crystal and pretend you didn't see anything. And then you're going to bring this boy a burger, double fries, milkshake on my tab. No arguments. That got me a little respect. Money is the only language some people speak fluently. The boy's eyes widened. Chocolate, he whispered. Obviously, I said, we just survived an attempted homicide. You're getting whipped cream? He grinned. But his eyes stayed on Sarah like she might lunge across the table and throttle me with a linen napkin. Sarah didn't say another word while the waiter carefully took the glass by its base and carried it away to be wrapped. Her hands rested on the table, fingers twisting her engagement ring, the ring my son chose, the ring I helped pay for. The ring I'd admired on her hand 30 minutes earlier when we were still talking about cake, flavors and floral arrangements, not homicide. Gina, she finally said, low and urgent, this is insane. Andrea probably put him up to this. There it was. The name. Andrea. My daughter. The one who hadn't spoken to me in 2 years. The one who'd texted me, you are not a mother, you are a monster. I want you to disappear from my life. Words sharp enough to slice through bone and, frankly, more painful than anything that could have been in that glass. I watched Sarah carefully. She shouldn't have brought up Andrea. Not yet. Not like that. Interesting leap, I said. A homeless child says you poured something in my water, and your first thought is Andrea. Because she hates you, Sarah blurted, then froze like she'd just heard herself. There is a moment when people betray themselves. A tiny crack in the mask. My late husband used to say you can learn more in 3 seconds of silence than in an hour of conversation. I've come to appreciate silence as a weapon. So I shut up and just watched her. She swallowed. I mean, she's unpredictable. You know that. I do, I said. I also know she doesn't know you very well. Funny that you're so sure, though. The boy's burger arrived, stacked like a skyscraper. I handed him the plate, slid a 20 under it for later, and leaned closer. Thank you, I told him quietly. You did the right thing. What's your name, Leo? He said, cheeks already full. Me and Mom sleep under the bridge. By the big supermarket, the one with your fish cans, of course. My husband's name is still on those cans. Gilbert Parker. Gold script, navy label, smiling fisherman holding a silver catch, Parker Bay Canfish. You can walk into almost any supermarket in America and find his face staring back at you from a shelf between the tuna and the sardines. They all thought I was just the wife on the boat in the old photo. Nobody expected me to be the one running the factory. Least of all my own children. Do you like the fish? I asked him. He shrugged. Sometimes we get the dented ones from the dumpster. The lemon pepper is the best. I smiled despite the situation. Lemon pepper was my idea. Eat up, I told him. And don't follow strangers unless they're as good-looking as me and promise cake, he snorted. Okay, lady? Mrs. Parker, I corrected. Or Gina if I buy you dessert again. The waiter brought me my glass wrapped in napkins, then sealed in a small paper bag like contraband. I tucked it carefully into my tote beside the folder with the wedding menus and cake designs. One bag for celebration, one bag for attempted murder. That's what I call balance. We're leaving, I said to Sarah, standing up. You're coming with me. To the police, her voice cracked. To my lab. People think running a canned fish company is about fish. It's not. It's about numbers, regulations, quality control, and making sure a million tiny things don't go wrong at once and land you on the front page of every newspaper in America because some guy in Des Moines found a bolt in his tuna. When my husband disappeared in those mountains 5 years ago, vanished on a hiking trip with 2 college buddies, and never came home, the board thought they'd sell the company. Or install some slick-haired outsider from Boston. They underestimated the quiet housewife. I'd spent 25 years at Gilbert's side, listening, watching, learning. While they assumed I was arranging flowers for board meetings, I was sitting in on logistics calls and reading quality reports. I knew which machines jammed most often, which line supervisors cut corners, and exactly how many minutes a batch could sit in the cooling room before the texture changed. So when Gilbert was presumed dead, I walked into the boardroom in my black dress, poured the men coffee, and told them calmly, I'm taking over. They laughed. 4 years later, sales were up 40%, waste was down, we had 4 new flavors on the shelves: lemon pepper, smoky maple, chipotle lime, and Mediterranean herb, courtesy of a food scientist I poached from a trendy startup. Our safety record was spotless. And Parker Bay was being called the comeback cannery in trade magazines. They stopped laughing. I built a new lab during those years. State-of-the-art equipment, good salaries, strict protocols. If you want Americans to put your fish in their mouths, you'd better be able to prove you won't kill them. Luckily, that lab can test more than fish. Which is why, 27 minutes after leaving the restaurant, I was standing in my own facility, holding that paper bag like a live grenade while my head of quality, Priya, stared at me over her glasses. You want us to test, or restaurant water glass, she repeated. That's right, I said. And I don't want any paperwork with my name or the company's name on it. Run it under the internal code we use for mystery audits, Priya frowned. Gina, this isn't exactly standard procedure, neither is poisoning your boss at lunch, I said sweetly. We're all exploring new things today. Sarah shifted uncomfortably in the chair by the wall. I'd parked her there like a bad intern and told her to sit. She hadn't said a word on the drive over. Just stared out the window, knuckles white around her phone. Twice, it buzzed in her hands. She didn't answer. Priya glanced at her and then back at me. Is this a family situation? I exhaled slowly. We don't know that yet. That's why we're testing the glass. Priya hesitated, then nodded, the professional in her taking over. All right. We'll swab the rim, the contents, run a tox screen, check for anything above trace levels. It'll take a couple of hours for a full panel. Give me the quick and dirty first, I said. I don't need the Latin name right away, just whether someone tried to turn me into a corpse with good posture. Priya's eyes softened. Are you okay? I'm annoyed, I said. I had plans for the rest of the day that didn't include almost dying. But otherwise peachy. She took the bag and headed to the inner lab. I watched through the glass partition as she unwrapped the napkins, carefully decanted the remaining water into sterile containers, and labeled everything in her precise, neat handwriting. On the other side of the glass, Sarah finally spoke. This is overreacting, she said weakly. Maybe the boy wanted more money. The boy got a double burger, fries, a milkshake, and change. I said, he's my favorite man today. She flinched, as if I'd slapped her. Gina. I would never hurt you. I turned to face her fully. 2 years ago, my daughter texted me that I was a monster who wanted to steal her happiness. Last year, she married my biggest competitor, a man with 7 ex-wives and a reputation that would make a shark blush. She didn't invite me. This year, my son finally finds a decent woman, and you suggest we have lunch at a restaurant I know my daughter frequents. Then I go to the restroom, and a child tells me you poured something into my glass. Sarah's eyes filled with tears. Andrea hates me. She's been saying awful things about me to Ethan, my son, my boy. The only one who still called me mom without a tone. If Andrea hates you, I said softly, explain to me why the first thing you did when the waiter took that glass away was look at your phone. And why, when it buzzed, you didn't answer. Her mouth opened and closed. That's not what happened. It is, I said. I watch people for a living. Workers, suppliers, executives, competitors. I read them. I might miss a red flag in my own children. I'm emotionally stupid that way, but outside the family, I'm very, very sharp. She pressed the heels of her hands into her eyes. I'm scared, Gina. Good, I said. Fear is healthy when someone is trying to kill you. Now is not the time to be relaxed. The lab phone rang. Priya picked up, listened, then hung up and motioned me inside. My heartbeat slowed, not sped up. That's how I know I'm really angry. My body gets calmer. Tell me, I said as soon as the inner door buzzed open. Priya looked grave. We ran a quick screening. There's a substance in the water at a concentration that's extremely concerning. Define concerning. Enough that, given your weight and the heat outside, drinking the full glass on an empty stomach could have caused cardiac arrest within an hour, she said quietly. It's a compound found in certain industrial products. We're still narrowing it down, but it doesn't belong in drinking water. For a second, the room tilted slightly, as if the floor had shifted under my heels. Not because I was afraid. I was past fear. I felt something colder, steelier, sliding into place. So it wasn't an accident, I said. No, Priya replied. This wasn't cross-contamination or a dirty carafe. Someone put this in your glass. I nodded once. All right, Priya's brows knit. Gina, we have to report this. The police, I know, I said. And we will. But first I need to do something. What? I looked through the glass at Sarah, sitting small and pale in the chair, twisting her ring until I thought it might cut into her skin. Her phone lit up on the table beside her with a new message. Even through the glass, I could see the sender's name. Andrea. My daughter. My little girl who used to sleep on my chest and now wanted me dead. I said quietly, to remember exactly how we got here, because the thing about nearly dying is this, it sharpens your memory. Every choice, every ignored warning. Every soft yes where there should have been a hard no lines up in your head like soldiers on a parade ground. And as I watched Sarah reach for her phone, hesitate, and then snatch it up, I knew one thing with perfect clarity. Whoever thought they could poison me for my money had just made the gravest mistake. F their life. They'd left me alive. And a woman like me doesn't survive betrayal twice without making someone very, very sorry. I stood there in the lab with Priya's words still hanging in the air, and I said I needed to remember how we got here. What I meant was, I needed to remember where I'd gone soft. Because trust me, I wasn't born soft. I grew up in a 2-bedroom apartment over a laundromat in Newark. My lullaby was the sound of dryers tumbling, and my alarm clock was my father swearing at broken change machines. We didn't have vacations, we had coupons. My mother used to say, "We're not poor. We're resourceful." That's code for broke with a good vocabulary. When I met Gilbert, I was 22, working the register at a dingy little grocery store near the docks. He came in smelling like salt and metal and tobacco, buying canned beans and coffee like every other man who worked down by the water. But he looked me in the eye when he handed over his money. Most men didn't. "You ever had canned mackerel?" he asked as I rang him up. "Can't say that I've had the pleasure," I told him. "It will be, once I'm done with it," he said, and smiled like he already knew his future. We were both broke. He was working in a tiny processing plant, dreaming of something bigger. I was counting nickels in a jar and calculating whether I could skip dinner so my mother could afford her medicine. We had exactly nothing except work ethic and a shared fantasy that life didn't have to stay like this. We got rich the old-fashioned way, slowly, painfully, and by making fewer stupid choices than the people around us. Gilbert started Parker Bay with a second-hand canning machine and a rented warehouse that smelled like sardines and regret. I did the books at night at our wobbly kitchen table after putting our babies to bed. When Andrea was born, we celebrated by switching from store-brand coffee to the good stuff for 1 week. When Ethan came along 2 years later, we upgraded to a used car that didn't stall on hills. We clawed our way out. What nobody tells you is that if you're not careful, the first generation that claws its way out raises the second generation in such comfort that they forget there was anything to claw out of. Andrea doesn't remember the laundromat. She remembers the big house we bought when I was 35, all windows and marble and a closet just for shoes. Ethan barely remembers the cramped apartment where we still shared one bathroom and the hot water had to take turns. They grew up with nannies and private schools and ski trips. They had names on waiting lists before they were born. They never once ate Denidkin soup for nights in a row because payday was Friday and it was Tuesday. I made a mistake, I'll admit it. I wanted them to have everything we didn't. I forgot that everything often comes with a side order of entitlement. Andrea was the first to show signs. Pretty, clever, charming in that way that makes people want to give you things you don't deserve yet. She breezed through college on our dime, changed majors 3 times, and emerged with a degree in something so general I used to call it expensive thinking. Her first husband was a pretty disaster with ABS. "Mom, you're being judgmental," she told me when I asked what he did for a living. "I'm being observant," I replied. "He's allergic to work and his jeans are tighter than yours." "Those are both problems. He's an entrepreneur," she snapped. "He has a vision." "Yes," I said. "He envisions your inheritance." The marriage lasted 19 months. It ended when she found out his startup was mostly poker nights and a pyramid scheme selling overpriced vitamins. I didn't say "I told you so." Not out loud. I just wrote the check to her lawyer, poured her a drink, and said, "Next time, ask for his tax returns before his ring size." Her second husband was older, respectable on paper, less handsome but more manipulative. He liked control the way some people like dessert. It took her 3 years to leave that one. "You don't understand what it's like for me," she cried to me over champagne in my kitchen after the divorce. "All the men I know expect a certain lifestyle, then meet different men," I said. "Try men who know how to fix things and pay bills on time." She rolled her eyes. "You married a millionaire." "I married a man making $10 an hour cleaning fish," I said sharply. "We became millionaires later. Together. One tired day at a time." She didn't like that answer. Andrea doesn't like stories where she isn't the princess being rescued. Gilbert's disappearance broke something in all of us, but it broke something different in each. He went on that trip like he always did once a year, a hiking vacation with the same two college friends. Only this time a storm rolled in early. The official story is fell, accident, lost, his body was never recovered. There was a memorial service with a picture instead of a coffin. Ethan grieved. Really grieved. He went quiet for months, dropped out of grad school for a semester, then came back with a fiercer sense of purpose. He started working down at the plant, not because he needed the money but because he wanted to understand what his father had built. Andrea reacted differently. "Has anyone seen the will?" she asked me 3 days after the memorial while I was still sleeping in his t-shirt and pretending I could hear his footsteps in the hall. Incredible timing, I told her. "I'm just being practical," she said, flipping her hair. "You always said we have to be practical." That was the first time I saw it in her eyes. Not grief. Calculation. When I told the board I was taking over, Andrea assumed it meant I'd run the company for a while and then hand it to her. "Sweetheart," I said gently, "you've never worked a day in your life where you couldn't quit by sending a text. I'm not handing you 300 workers and an international supply chain like it's a handbag. You don't think I can do it?" she demanded. "I don't think you want to," I replied. "You want the benefits, not the burden." She moved out a month later. It wasn't a dramatic slam door scene, just a cool, quiet separation. She took her clothes, her jewelry, and the assumption that her mother was being selfish. Meanwhile, I went to war in the boardroom. I turned Parker Bay from a sleepy legacy brand into something modern. I hired new people, fired a few sacred cows, invested in technology, and put my trust in numbers, not nostalgia. I brought in experts like Priya, and my food scientist, a brilliant woman with blue hair named Carla who thought canned fish could be sexy. I laughed at her when she said that. Then her lemon pepper line sold out in a week, and I sent her flowers. But the more successful I became, the more Andrea treated it like I'd stolen something from her. "You're acting like a man," she spat at me once when we were fighting about her latest boyfriend. "Like you're the only one who matters." "No," I said. "I'm acting like an adult." "You should try it." The competitor came along 2 years later. His name is Victor Hale, but I call him other things in my head that would curl your hair. He runs a chain of processed seafood brands, all flash, no soul. His cans are pretty, his margins are better than his morals, and he's rumored to scream at interns in elevators. More importantly, 7 ex-wives. Not one of them walked away with more than the clothes in her suitcase and whatever jewelry he forgot to lock up. "He's misunderstood," Andrea told me over coffee one morning, eyes shining in that way that always spells trouble. "He adores me." "What he adores," I said, "is acquiring things other rich men respect. Pretty wives fall into the category. So do companies he can later swallow." "You're just jealous," she said. "You don't want me to be happier than you." I stared at my own daughter and wondered who had taught her that love is a competition measured in carats and square footage. "I want you to be safe," I said calmly. "He has 7 ex-wives." "Andrea, that's not a romantic comedy, that's a warning label." "He's generous," she insisted. "He's generous before he marries them," I countered. "Then he hands them a prenup so tight they can barely breathe." "He wouldn't do that to me," she said. "I'm not some random woman. I'm me, the narcissist's anthem. The rules don't apply to me." "Listen to me," I said, leaning forward. "You don't have to marry for wealth. You choose someone hardworking and intelligent, and you build wealth together. That's how your father and I did it. We came from nothing. We made something." "I don't have time to start from nothing," she said. "I'm 32. Do you know how quickly beauty fades in this town? Only if it's the only thing you have," I replied. She stood up so fast her chair screeched. "You're trying to take my happiness away because you lost yours." "What I lost," I said slowly, feeling something cold settle in my chest, "was my husband in a storm he couldn't control. I'm trying to keep you from walking into a storm you can see coming." She left without saying goodbye. 3 months later, I read about her engagement in Business Gazette before I heard about it from her. There was a glossy photo, Victor with his predatory smile, Andrea in a dress that cost more than my first car, her hand on his chest. That rock on her finger gleaming like a little mirror reflecting my worst fears back at me. The article called it the merger of the year. They meant their companies. I knew better. It was my daughter's soul being leveraged. The text came 2 weeks before the wedding. I'd called to ask about invitations, naively hoping some corner of her heart still knew how to spell mom. No answer. Then, 10 minutes later, my phone chimed. You are not a mother, you are a monster. You wanted to take my happiness away because you lost yours yourself. I want you to disappear from my life. I stared at those words on my screen until the letters blurred. I sat at the same kitchen table where I'd once cut her sandwiches into heart shapes and packed them in little pink lunch boxes. I didn't reply. Sometimes silence is the only armor you have left. The city lost its mind over that wedding. The best wedding in 10 years, the papers said. Photos everywhere. Andrea in a dress that looked like it had been sculpted directly onto her, flowers like a botanical garden threw up, crystal chandeliers, fireworks. Everyone of consequence was there. Everyone except me. On the day of the wedding, I put on jeans, tied my hair back, and went to the plant. I walked the floor for 8 hours straight, talked to line workers, tasted random cans, checked temperatures and seals. I let the rhythm of the machines drown out the noise in my mind. That night, I poured myself a glass of wine, sat alone in my big, quiet house, and watched my daughter smile into cameras with a man I knew would break her. You might ask, why didn't I storm the wedding? Make a scene. Throw myself between them like some dramatic movie mother. Because I know something my daughter refuses to learn: you can't drag someone out of a cage they're calling a palace. You have to wait until they notice the bars themselves. She noticed them 18 months later. It was a Tuesday. Betrayal loves Tuesdays, ordinary, unsuspecting days. I heard the gate buzzer while I was on a conference call about a new supplier. The security camera popped up on my phone screen. Andrea. No makeup, hair messy, eyes swollen. I'd never seen her look less like the woman on magazine covers and more like the little girl who once scraped her knees falling off a bike. Excuse me, I told the men on the call. I have an urgent matter. We'll reconvene in an hour. I went downstairs slowly. Part of me was afraid that if I moved too fast, she'd vanish like a mirage. She was waiting by the front door when I opened it, arms wrapped around herself though it wasn't cold. Mom, she whispered. The word hit me harder than any insult she'd ever thrown. I leaned against the doorframe, keeping my face carefully neutral. Andrea, tears spilled over. He kicked me out, she stammered. He said the prenup means I get nothing. I have nowhere to go. I was wrong, okay. You were right. Please. I need you. The part of me that is pure mother surged forward, screaming to hug her, to pull her inside, to make her tea and a plan and an escape route. But another part of me, the part that had kept that text message saved under Do Not Forget, stepped in front. Do you still have your phone? I asked quietly. She blinked, confused. What, your phone? I repeated. Is it with you? Yes, she said. Mom, what does that good? I said. Because I want you to take it out, open our messages, and scroll back to the last thing you sent me before today. Her hands trembled as she did it. I knew the exact date. I'd seen those words 100 times, each one a tiny scar. Her face went white as she read. I was upset, she whispered. I didn't mean, but you did, I said gently. You meant it enough to send it. You meant it enough not to unsend it. You meant it enough to get married without me there. She reached for me then, but I stepped back. Mom, please, she sobbed. You can't do this. I have nothing. Yes, I said softly, you do. You have the consequences you chose. Her eyes went wild. You're punishing me because you were right. I'm protecting myself, I interrupted. From someone who wanted me to disappear from her life. I'm respecting your request, I walked past her to the driveway, heels clicking on the stone. My driver, Luis, was already there, waiting by the car. I'd asked him to bring it around when the buzzer rang. "Where are you going?" Andrea cried. "Out," I said. "Somewhere I'm wanted." I opened the door, then paused and looked back at her, a trembling woman on my doorstep, not the little girl with scraped knees. "When you learn to talk to me like a daughter," I said quietly, "not like a prosecutor or a gold miner, you can call. Until then, you wanted a life without me. Try it on for size." I got into the car and shut the door. Luis glanced at me in the rearview mirror. "Home, Mrs. Parker?" "No," I said, my throat tight but my voice steady. "Take me to the plant." As we pulled away, I saw her in the side mirror, small, shocked, reaching out as if she could grab the car and pull it back by sheer will. I cried that night. Ugly, gut deep sobbing. Then I washed my face, looked in the mirror, and said out loud, "You will not abandon yourself again, Gina. Not for anyone." I thought that was the end. I was wrong. Because now I was standing in my own lab, listening to Priya talk about industrial chemicals in my water glass, and my maybe future daughter-in-law sitting outside with my daughter's name lighting up her phone. Patterns, darling, have a way of repeating until you break them with something sharp. "What are you going to do?" Priya asked softly. I wiped my eyes, didn't even know when they'd started burning, and straightened my shoulders. "First," I said, "I'm going to call my lawyer. I have a will to rewrite." Priya's eyebrows shot up. "Your will?" "Gina, if my daughter wants my money badly enough to kill me for it," I said, my voice turning to steel, "then I'm going to make sure that if she ever gets anything, it's certainly not through my early funeral." I pulled out my phone and scrolled to Jonathan's number, my lawyer of 20 years, a man who knows where all the bodies are buried. Metaphorically speaking. As the line rang, I watched Sarah through the glass. She was hunched over her phone, thumbs flying, expression panicked. Whoever she was texting, I was about to cut their favorite story, "We'll be rich when mom dies," off at the knees. "Jonathan," I said when he picked up, my voice calm and bright as a blade, "it's Gina. Clear your afternoon. We're about to make some very interesting changes." Jonathan arrived at my house less than an hour after I called him. That's one of the benefits of being loyal to a lawyer for 20 years. You don't just get service, you get punctual panic. He showed up with his leather briefcase, his rimless glasses, and that worried little crease between his eyebrows that he saves for divorces, corporate takeovers, and anything involving my children. "Gina," he said as soon as I opened the door. "Your voice on the phone. What happened?" I motioned him inside. "I'll tell you everything. But first, coffee." He blinked. "Coffee? You almost died and you're offering me coffee? Well, I'm not making sandwiches, if that's what you're hoping for," I said, walking toward the kitchen. "Sit. We have work to do." We sat at my marble island, Jonathan with his notepad, me with a fresh cup of Ethiopian roast, and the memory of that poison glass still burning in my head like a lit match waiting for gasoline. I told him everything. From the lunch with Sarah, to the boy named Leo, to the lab results, to the name on her phone. Andrea. The whole thing. He listened without interrupting, which is something I've always admired about him. Some lawyers hear $signs instead of words. Jonathan hears meaning. When I finished, he exhaled through his nose. Long and slow. "That's severe," he said finally. "I call it Tuesday," I replied. "Now my will." He raised his pen. "What changes did you have in mind?" I didn't hesitate. "I'm leaving $1 million to Ethan," I said. "In a trust he can touch when he's 40. Not a penny before. He doesn't need the temptation." "Understood. And everything else," I continued, "goes to the Ridgeview Shelter for Families in Crisis." Jonathan's pen froze mid-stroke. All of it, all of it." He slowly set the pen down. "Gina, that's a considerable amount of money." "We're talking." "I know what we're talking about," I said. "I'm the one who built it. And I'll be damned if I let a daughter who doesn't want me alive get a single cent for wanting me dead." Jonathan rubbed his temples. Legally you can do this, of course. But morally, I cut in, the only child who hasn't betrayed me is getting what he needs. The rest goes to people who genuinely need it. And my daughter, my murder-curious daughter, gets nothing but the life she wanted, one without me. Jonathan nodded once, accepting that my decision was made. He drafted the papers right there at my kitchen island, hands flying across the page. He knows my style, quick, clean, no loopholes. He slid the stack toward me, and I initialed and signed without flinching. This will anger her, he warned softly. Oh, good, I said. I'm tired of being the only angry one. He closed the briefcase with a snap of finality. I'll file everything by the end of the day. And Jonathan, I added as he headed toward the door, make sure there's a clause. If I die under suspicious circumstances, Andrea receives nothing. Not even my tea kettle, he nodded grimly. Already included, of course it was. That's why I keep him. By the time he left, my kitchen felt too quiet. Too clean. Too normal for a day when someone had tried to turn me into a headline. I looked at the clock. Sarah was still at the lab. I'd left her there with strict instructions not to go anywhere until I returned. One attempted murder at lunch is enough, I told her. Let's not add fleeing the scene to the menu. I needed to talk to her. Not because I expected a confession that would require a spine, but because I needed to know exactly how deep she was in with Andrea. And if she'd been sent to kill me or simply pressured into it. Pressure makes cowards. Loyalty makes killers. I needed to know which one she was. When I arrived back at the lab, she was sitting where I left her, staring at the floor. Her eyes flickered up when I entered like she was afraid of what version of me walked through that door. Come with me, I said calmly. We're taking a drive, she followed without argument. That was almost disappointing. I prefer my betrayers with a little fight, it makes the game more interesting. We got into my car. Luis drove. He didn't need instructions, he knew where we were going. Back to the restaurant. Back to the boy. Leo was sitting on the curb out front, knees pulled to his chest, still wearing the same faded cap and oversized jacket. He looked up when my car door opened. Hey, he said, wiping his mouth with the back of his hand. You came back? I smiled. Of course I did. You saved my life, kid. Least I can do is say thank you properly. His eyes darted past me to Sarah, who was trailing in my shadow like a guilty ghost. He stiffened. She with you, he asked. Unfortunately, I said. But don't worry, she's not sitting near my drinks anymore. He nodded like that made perfect sense. Where's your mom? I asked gently. She's at the underpass, he said. She's got a bad cough. We've been out here a long time. How long? I pressed. A year, he said. Since she lost her job at the hotel. Rent went up. We couldn't keep up. A year. A year living under concrete. While my daughter had been throwing tantrums in penthouses. Get in the car, I said. His eyes widened. Really, yes, I said. You're coming with me, and my mom, we're picking her up next. Sarah's mouth dropped open. Gina, what are you doing? Oh, Sarah, I said sweetly, don't speak. You've spoken enough today. Luis drove us to the underpass. We found Leo's mother thin, exhausted, wrapped in a blanket. Her eyes widened when she saw her son climb out of my black sedan, followed by me. Ma'am, she whispered, staggering to her feet. Leo didn't do anything wrong, I swear, he did everything right, I said. You're coming with us. Both of you. She stared at me with a mixture of fear and disbelief. People who've been living in survival mode don't trust kindness at face value. They think it's a trick. Why? She asked. Because your son saved my life today, I said. And because I'm in the mood to fix something. Her knees buckled. I caught her. Luis helped them both into the car. Sarah looked out the opposite window like she wanted to crawl through the glass. I didn't say a word as we drove. There are moments in life where talking cheapens what's happening. This was one. We pulled up in front of an apartment building. I owned one of those investments Gilbert and I made back before we had a single marble countertop. Solid brick. Clean. Safe. I led them inside. This one, I said, unlocking a door on the second floor. 2 bedrooms, kitchen. Heat that actually works. You can move in today. Leo's mother stared at me, hands shaking. We can't afford. I didn't ask you to pay for it, I said. I said you could live in it. She started crying. Leo hugged her waist, confused but relieved. And one more thing, I added. Do you want a job? Her head snapped up. A job, yes. Full-time, benefits. Laundry supervisor at the plant. It's honest work and it pays well. You start Monday. She covered her mouth with both hands. Ma'am, I don't know what to say. Thank you, I said gently. Then say yes, she whispered both. I handed her a key. You earned this, I said. Your son earned it. Be proud of him. Leo looked up at me, and there was something new in his eyes, something like hope, but steadier. Can I hug you? He asked shyly. You can, I said. But don't get attached. I'm not done being terrifying. He laughed and threw his arms around me. Behind us, Sarah watched everything with a strange expression, half shame, half something like regret. Good, she deserved to regret everything. When we got back into the car, Sarah finally spoke. I didn't want to hurt you, she whispered. Stop, I said. If you want mercy, you're asking the wrong woman. Tears filled her eyes. Andrea said it wouldn't really hurt you. She said it would just make you sick. She said you'd be out of the way for a while. That you'd calm down. The stupidity of it would have been funny if it weren't lethal. Let me explain something, I said, voice like steel wrapped in silk. My daughter wants my money. She wants my company. She wants my name. And she thinks all of that is easier to get if I'm gone. You chose to help her because you wanted proximity to wealth. That makes you dangerous and useless. A bad combination. I'm sorry, she cried. I don't care, I said. Apologizing doesn't unpoison the glass. She looked at me helplessly. What are you going to do? I already did it, I said. I rewrote my will. Andrea gets nothing. And you, she held her breath, are going to disappear from my son's life. Her shoulders collapsed inward. You're going to tell him, yes, I said simply. Tonight, she sobbed openly now. He'll believe me, I continued. Because I have a lab report, a security footage request already filed at the restaurant, and the testimony of a child who had no reason to lie. She buried her face in her hands. He'll hate me. That, I said, is the one thing you've said today that's correct. I tapped Luis on the shoulder. Take her home, I said. Then take me back to the plant. Luis nodded, as Sarah got out of the car. I lowered the window. Oh, and Sarah. She turned, mascara streaking her cheeks. If you ever come near me again, I said softly, I will show you what I learned growing up over a laundromat in Newark. And trust me, those lessons aren't written in etiquette books. She backed away like I'd slapped her, then turned and ran toward her building. I watched her go. Then I leaned back in my seat, closed my eyes, and breathed. The day had started with wedding cake tasting. It had escalated into attempted murder, or rewritten will, or rescued family. And the dismantling of my son's engagement. Busy day. Even for me. But something else was happening, something I hadn't fully understood yet. As we drove back toward the plant, I couldn't shake the feeling that I'd just taken the first step into a much bigger storm, one that had been gathering for years behind my daughter's polished smiles and de-rehearsed grievances, and for the first time in a very long time, I was ready for it. I didn't sleep that night. Not because of fear, please, fear and I stopped dating decades ago. We had a clean breakup and I've been seeing determination ever since. No, I stayed awake because my mind was humming like a power line in a storm. Too many years of betrayal, disappointment, and whispered warnings had finally linked themselves together into one clear, unmistakable truth. Andrea wasn't finished. And if I'd learned anything from running a cannery, it's that ignoring a small leak meant you'd wake up ankle-deep in fish brine wondering how it all went wrong. I made myself a pot of chamomile tea strong enough to numb a small horse and sat at my kitchen table. The same table where I'd once braided Andrea's hair before school and signed checks to cover the messes she made as an adult. Some nights, life feels like a cruel joke told by someone who can't quite remember the punchline. Round midnight, I heard soft footsteps. Ethan. He walked in wearing pajama pants and a t-shirt with the Parker Bay logo on it, one he'd gotten when he was 10 and insisted on wearing to sleep until it turned to threads. I'd had Carla make him a new one last Christmas. He wore it like armor. He stopped when he saw my face. "Mom," he asked gently. "What happened?" That was when the exhaustion cracked me open. I told him everything. And I mean everything, slowly, painfully, piece by piece, from the restaurant to the lab, to Sarah's trembling attempts to deny the obvious, to Andrea's name on her phone, to the rewritten will, to the apartment for Leo and his mother. He stood perfectly still, jaw clenched, eyes dark and steady in a way that reminded me of Gilbert. When I finished, I braced myself for shock, anger, heartbreak. But my son, my sweet, loyal, steady son, just nodded once. "I believe you," he said. And just like that, the knot in my chest loosened. "You don't want to ask Sarah for her side?" I asked. "No," he said quietly. "Because I've watched you spend my whole life telling the truth, even when it cost you something. And I've watched Andrea lie even when it helped nothing." He sat down across from me. "I broke things off with Sarah," he said, rubbing his face. "She confessed to enough over text when you dropped her off. She was panicking. She admitted she followed Andrea's instructions. Something about a small dose." My stomach twisted. "She said it was small, yeah." He squeezed his eyes shut. "Like that makes it any better." I took his hand. "I'm so sorry you're going through this." "No," he said firmly. "I'm sorry you had to. I should have kept Sarah away from Andrea." They were texting behind my back. I noticed a few times. I didn't think much of it. "Love makes fools of the best of us," I said. "And sometimes it makes targets of the people we should protect." He looked up at me with something hard and molten in his expression, protective anger, a Parker family trait. "What do you want to do about Andrea?" he asked. "Nothing," I said. He blinked. Nothing proactive," I clarified. "A woman like her eventually drowns in the water she poisoned. I don't need revenge." He raised an eyebrow. I smirked. "Well, not yet." He chuckled despite everything, shook his head, and kissed my forehead. "Go to bed, Mom. I'll stay up. I'll handle the morning meetings. You rest." I did go upstairs, but rest, no. Rest is for peace, and peace wasn't in my house that night. But resilience was. And resilience, darling, is louder. The next morning, my phone jolted me awake. Unknown number. I let it ring once before answering. "This is Gina." Silence. Then a shaky breath. "Mom, Andrea." Funny how one word can still sting like salt in an open wound. "What do you want?" I asked, my voice colder than last night's tea. "Did you change your will?" she demanded. Straight to business. Lovely. "Yes," I said. "Ethan told me," she snapped. "You left everything to a shelter. Are you out of your mind?" "Child," I said, "I didn't lose my mind. I exercised it." "You can't do that," she said. "You can't leave me out. I'm your daughter. You told me to disappear from your life," I reminded her. "I'm just honoring your wishes." "That was 2 years ago," she shouted. "And the attempted murder was yesterday," I countered. "You see the imbalance here?" A sharp inhale. "That wasn't me. Your accomplice said otherwise." "She's lying. And the lab test." Silence. "Let me make something clear," I said. If you think crying, screaming, or threatening will get you back into my will, you're mistaken. You're punishing me, she hissed. No, I said. I'm protecting myself. You punish the people you love when they won't hand you their lives on a platter. Her voice cracked. Mom, I need you, it was said too quickly, too desperately, sounding like someone who had been told by someone else that things were about to fall apart. I put steel into my tone. You only need me when your last scheme collapses. I'm no longer your safety net. The line went dead. She hung up. Not surprising. People who use love as currency never know how to stay in a conversation when the exchange rate drops to zero. At noon, I drove to the plant. Not because I had to, but because the factory floor is where I breathe best. While other wealthy women in my position escape to spas or boutiques, I go to stainless steel, conveyor belts, and the hiss of steam cookers. It's grounding. Real. When I walked in, the workers clapped. Not polite applause. Real applause, the kind given to someone who survived. Priya must have told them something vague. Enough to worry them. Enough to make them grateful I was standing there alive. Carla threw her arms around me, blue hair swinging. Boss lady. When I heard, my God, Gina, if you had died, I would have shaved my head and joined a monastery. You'd make a lovely monk, I said dryly. Blue robes to match the hair, she sniffed. Glad you're still sarcastic. That's a good sign. I'm fine, I said. But thank you. Workers gathered near the production line, hair nets, gloves, faces full of concern. Everything okay, Mrs. P? Someone asked. Yes, I said. Because you all make this place a fortress. And I'm not going anywhere. A cheer went up. It warmed me more than any apology my daughter could ever fake. Later that afternoon, I drove to Leo's new apartment to check on them. The door flew open before I could knock. Leo grinned. We have hot water. Well, hallelujah, I said. Let's alert the press. His mother stepped forward, cleaner, calmer, wearing borrowed clothes that actually fit her. I don't know how to thank you, Mrs. Parker. By showing up Monday ready to work, she smiled. I will. I believed her. People who've had nothing don't take gifts for granted. People who've never known stability treat it like sacred ground. I envied her gratitude. I missed it in my own blood. Leo tugged my sleeve. Did you tell your son about the bad lady? Yes, I said. And he believed me. Good, he said with the righteous certainty only children possess. Bad ladies shouldn't get away with stuff. No, I agreed softly. They shouldn't. He hugged me again. I hugged him back, and I swear to you something in me softened and hardened at the same time. Softened because kindness does that. Hardened because betrayal teaches you to carry armor beneath your smile. 3 days passed. 3 calm days, which, in my family, is the prelude to disaster. On the 4th morning, Louise met me at the car with a tight expression. Mrs. Parker, someone left this at the gate. He handed me a thick envelope. Expensive. Heavy. A wax seal with an emblem I knew too well. The Hale family crest. Victor Hale, my daughter's husband. I broke the seal. Inside was a single page typed in crisp, arrogant font. Mrs. Parker, it has come to my attention that you recently made legally binding changes to your estate that negatively impact my wife, Andrea Hale. This is unacceptable. Your wealth will someday be tied to my family line, and it is in everyone's best interest that your daughter receives what she is due. I strongly urge you to reconsider your decision before certain unfortunate truths about Parker Bay come to light. I would prefer not to escalate this. Respectfully, Victor Hale. I read the letter twice. Then once more, slowly. Louise watched my expression carefully. Is it bad? He asked. Oh, Louise, I said, laughing, not a soft laugh, but a sharp, delighted one that made him blink. It's better than bad. It's stupid. Stupid, yes, I said, folding the letter neatly. He just threatened the wrong woman. Do you want me to alert security? No, I said, slipping the letter into my bag. I want you to take me to his office. Louise hesitated. Mrs. Parker, are you sure? Yes, I said, fixing my earrings in the reflection of the car window. He thinks he's dealing with a grieving widow who inherited a company she barely understands. I turned, meeting Luce's eyes. He has no idea who he's actually dealing with. Louise nodded and opened the car door. As I slid into the back seat, something electric hummed beneath my skin. The old Gina, the one who used to sit beside Gilbert in strategy meetings and whisper which executives were lying. The Gina who watched men underestimate her for decades and smiled every time she proved them wrong. Today, I wasn't surviving. I was hunting. Let's go, I said. And we drove straight toward the man who thought he could threaten me into submission. Poor fool. He had no idea he'd just declared war on a woman who had nothing left to fear and everything left to defend. Victor Hale's headquarters looked exactly like the man himself, tall, polished, cold, and desperately trying to impress you with all the wrong things. Chrome everywhere. Glass walls. A fountain in the lobby shaped like a swordfish leaping out of a block of ice symbolizing, I assumed, his personality. Louise parked out front. Do you want me to come in? No, I said. Give me 15 minutes. If I'm not back by then, call my lawyer. And the police, he asked. Only if you see blood, anyone's. I'm not picky. He blinked, nodded, and stayed by the car. I marched into the building without hesitation. The receptionist, a young woman with the posture of someone afraid to breathe wrong, looked up. I'm here to see Victor Hale, I said. Do you have an appointment? She asked timidly. No. But he'll want to see me, she swallowed. Name, Gina Parker. Her eyes widened like she'd just realized the fire inspector had walked into a fireworks factory. Please have a seat, she stammered. I'll notify Mr. Hale. I'll stand, I said, and walked toward the elevators myself. She didn't dare stop me. Smart girl. The top floor had a private elevator. Victor's domain. I stepped out into a hallway so quiet you could hear insecurity's echo. His office door was enormous dark wood, polished brass handle, the kind men install when they're compensating for weak character. I knocked once, no answer. I opened the door anyway. Victor Hale looked up from behind his desk with a smile as fake as his tan. Mrs. Parker, he said. Standing as though we were two heads of state meeting over trade agreements, I hoped you'd come. Hoped? I asked, closing the door behind me. Darling. You threatened me. This is the natural result. He gestured to a chair. Sit. No, he smirked. You don't take direction well, do you? Only from people with functioning morals, I said. His smirk faltered. Good. I pulled the letter from my bag and placed it neatly on his desk. Let's discuss this, I said. You wrote that if I don't reconsider my will, some unfortunate truths about Parker Bay may come to light. Victor leaned back in his chair like a man who believed he held the high cards. That's right, he said. Your company has skeletons, Gina. Every company does. And I have access to analysts who can make accidents look like scandals. Supply chain irregularities. Safety concerns. Worker complaints. The kind of things regulators salivate over. I laughed. A sharp, bright burst of laughter that made his face tighten. Oh, Victor, I said. You have no idea what you're stepping into, he bristled. Are you really willing to burn your own daughter? Your own legacy? All because of pride. Let's clarify something, I said, leaning forward on his desk. That woman you married is my daughter by biology only, loyalty, respect. Those she outsourced years ago. And my legacy. I build my legacy with my bare hands and for flavors of fish. It's mine to light on fire if I choose. His jaw clenched. Good. He was finally starting to realize this wouldn't go like his previous intimidations. I'm giving you a chance, he said. Put Andrea back in your will. Restore her inheritance. And I'll forget all of this. You'll forget, I repeated. My God, you talk like a man who thinks he's holding the leash. He stiffened. I'm not the enemy here, no, I said. You're worse. You're irrelevant. That hit him like a slap. I continued, voice smooth as velvet over steel. Let me tell you what I know about you, Victor. You marry vulnerable women. You isolate them. You charm them until they sign whatever you put in front of them. Then you strip everything when they're weak. You did it 7 times. That's unsubstantiated. No, I said. That's documented. But here's the best part, I turned slightly, letting my gaze wander around his sterile office. You've never dealt with a woman who's smarter than you, wealthier than you, and completely unafraid of losing everything. He narrowed his eyes. You think this is bravery? It's foolish. No, I said. It's math. I took out my phone and slid it across his desk. A photo displayed on the screen. Security footage. From the restaurant. From the terrace. From the angle showing Sarah's hand dropping something into my glass. I watched Victor's pupils contract. You didn't think I'd get the footage, I said. But I did. And guess what else? I found the restaurant's receipt logs. The hostess notes. And the parking lot cameras showing Andrea's car leaving 10 minutes before Sarah and I arrived. He swallowed. Hard. I leaned even closer. You married the wrong daughter for your little empire-building plan. Andrea is careless, emotional, reckless. If she committed a crime and she left evidence everywhere, you think she was discreet. Darling. She leaves digital footprints like she's dancing in wet cement. He rubbed his forehead. You wouldn't go public with this. Oh, I said brightly, I wouldn't need to. I listed them on my fingers. The police, the business press, and best of all your ex-wives. He went pale. Oh, yes, I continued, savoring the moment. They would love to hear that the man who took everything from them is finally cornered. They'd line up like it's Black Friday. He stood abruptly. I could ruin your company. No, I said calmly. You could try. But you forget something. I pointed toward the plant in the distance, visible through his window. I run a clean operation. My workers would walk through fire for me. The regulators trust me. My supplier contracts are airtight. And the press likes a good comeback story. Then I smiled. And you? Your whole empire is held together with NDA letters, prenups, and fear. Get out, he whispered. Gladly, I said. But before I go, one more thing. I walked to the door, paused, and looked back. Come after me again, Victor, just once and I will destroy your empire without raising my voice. Do you understand? His silence was answer enough. I opened the door, stepped into the hallway, and called over my shoulder, oh, and tell Andrea I said hello. She won't call me herself, she's too busy planning her next mistake. Then I shut the door behind me. Luis was waiting by the elevator. Is everything okay, Mrs. Parker? Lovely, I said. Let's go home. When we got back to my house, something unexpected happened. Ethan was sitting on the porch with someone, a woman. Not just any woman. Leo's mother. And Leo was playing in my yard, running around with a soccer ball like he'd been born there. I walked toward them slowly. Ethan stood up. Mom, he said nervously, I didn't plan this. She didn't want to impose. She just wanted to thank you again. Leo's mother stood too. Her name was Marisol. She'd told me that on moving day, soft and shy like it was something she wasn't sure she deserved to claim. Mrs. Parker, she said, flushing. I didn't want to bother. You're not bothering, I said. Now, I'm not blind. I saw the way Ethan was looking at her. The soft glances. The gentle attention. The way he angled his body toward her like she was something precious. Oh, this was going to be interesting. Mom, he said, clearing his throat, I wanted you to meet her properly. Marisol. And Leo. I met them already, I said, under less glamorous circumstances. He smiled sheepishly. Yeah, I know. But I wanted you to meet her as someone important to me. Ah, there it was. The truth, unwrapped and placed gently in my hands. I looked at Marisol. Her hair pulled back neatly. Her eyes tired but hopeful. Shoulders straightening as if she were bracing for me to disapprove. She'd been abandoned by the world enough times to expect it again. But I wasn't the world. I opened my mouth but Ethan beat me to it. Mom, he said, I asked her to come to Thanksgiving. Good, I said simply. He blinked. Good, yes, I said. Better than good. Marisol's eyes brimmed suddenly. I don't want to be a burden. You won't be, I said. And if anyone tries to make you feel like one, I'll have them professionally removed. Ethan let out a breath like he'd been holding it for hours. Leo ran up then, out of breath. Mrs. Parker. Can I show you something? Of course. He held up a drawing. Stick figures. 4 of them. One tall man. One tall woman with curly hair, a boy. A little boy. I recognized my curls. This is your family, I asked gently. That's you, he said, pointing to the curly-haired stick figure. And that's my mom. And Ethan and me. I felt my eyes sting. Not with sadness. With something like the beginning of healing. You're a good artist, I said softly. He grinned. You think so, I know so. He laughed, and at that exact moment, something clicked inside me. A realization. Something big. Something inevitable. I turned to Ethan, who was watching me anxiously. Invite them to dinner, I said. Not Thanksgiving. Tonight. I'll cook. He blinked. Mom, you don't cook. I smiled. For them, I will, and I meant it. For the first time in years, I wanted to. Marisol's gratitude. Leo's laughter. Ethan's relief. Those were the first good things in my life in a long time, uncomplicated, sincere, honest. And as I stood in my kitchen that evening, chopping vegetables like a woman who hadn't run a multi-million-dollar company that day, something occurred to me. My daughter tried to poison me. My son brought someone into my life who made me feel alive. And destiny had a strange way of replacing what breaks. But the story wasn't finished. Andrea would strike again. People like her always do. And next time? I'd be ready. Dinner that evening felt like the first warm breeze after a long, bitter winter. The 4 of us sat around my kitchen table, me, Ethan, Marisol, and little Leo, eating a chicken dish I hadn't made in 20 years but somehow remembered purely out of muscle memory and maternal instinct. Granted, I burned the onions a little, but nobody complained. When you've lived under a bridge for a year, a slightly over-caramelized onion is practically a Michelin star experience. Leo devoured everything in sight, pausing only to deliver critiques like a tiny, starving Gordon Ramsay. This is the best chicken ever, he announced, mouth full. But the broccoli's a little mushy. I pointed a fork at him. Careful, kid. You're going to grow up to be my operations manager. He grinned, revealing a missing tooth. Cool, Marisol watched him with a mixture of pride and worry. I could see the calculation in her eyes, the same look I used to have when my kids were young. Is this too good? Too generous? Too safe? Will it disappear in the morning? Some women live their whole lives waiting for the other shoe to drop, never realizing they deserve a whole closet full of shoes. I let her settle slowly. Trust should be earned, not rushed. After dinner, when the dishes were washed and Leo was helping Ethan fix a wobbly chair, my son showing him how to tighten bolts like it was the most important lesson he'd ever teach, I stepped onto the back patio with Marisol. She hugged her sweater around herself, still unsure how to exist in a space where she wasn't invisible. Thank you, she said quietly. For the apartment, for the job, for all of this. You don't owe me thanks, I said. Your son saved my life. And I don't forget people who protect. Me. Ever. She looked down at her hands. I still feel like I don't belong here. Neither did I said. Not when Gilbert brought home his first real paycheck. Not when we bought this house. Not when the papers started calling me a business icon. You don't grow up in poverty and just shake it off. It sticks, she nodded slowly. You don't have to earn your place with me, I added. You've already earned it, her eyes filled. She didn't cry, she was too used to holding tears in, but she let out a long breath like she'd been carrying a weight for years. I could tell she wasn't used to women helping her without wanting something. That's why what happened next was so important, Gina, she said softly. Your son. He's a good man. Yes, he is. And I don't want to complicate things. I know he's been through a lot. I smirked. Are you worried you're too complicated? She nodded. My dear, I said gently, complicated women make the world interesting. And if my son wanted simple, he wouldn't be following your son around the living room right now like an overgrown golden retriever. She laughed, really laughed. The sound startled her. That's when I realized something. This woman was going to change all our lives. In the best possible way. After they left that night, the house felt different. Not quieter. Not emptier. Just warm from the inside, like someone had lit a candle in every room. Ethan stayed behind as I cleaned up. Mom, he said, taking plates out of my hands, you don't have to worry. I'm not rushing anything. I know, I said. But I also know when a man has already made up his mind. He froze. Is it that obvious? Oh, sweet boy. You have the subtlety of a marching band. He rubbed the back of his neck, cheeks pink. It's just, she's kind. And strong. And she's had the world thrown at her, but she's still gentle. And Leo, he exhaled. I didn't know I could care about a kid like that. You're going to make a good father, I said. His eyes softened. Someday, yes, I murmured. Someday. The next morning, I woke up to 3 missed calls from unknown numbers. Then a text from Jonathan, call me immediately. Something has happened. Something inside me tightened, but not with fear, more like resolution. I dialed. He answered on the first ring. Gina, he said, breathless. Your daughter. She's filed a suit against you. Of course she has, I said calmly, sitting down at my vanity to put on lipstick. What's the premise? Emotional distress. Loss of imaginary inheritance. Attempted homicide gone wrong? Worse, he said, she's claiming you're mentally unfit to run the company. She's petitioning for a conservatorship. I paused halfway through applying my lipstick. Well, I said, that's creative. I'll give her points for originality. She's accusing you of paranoia, vindictiveness, unstable behavior, and financial recklessness. I set the lipstick down slowly. You mean she's accusing me of what? She is. Yes, he said, she hired a very aggressive attorney, someone who loves high-profile family cases. They're pushing for an immediate evaluation. Well, I said, standing up, this should be fun. Gina, he warned. They're serious. They plan to use your will change as evidence of impulsivity. Then they're going to be disappointed, I said, because my mind has never been clearer. He sighed. I'll schedule a countersuit. We'll fight it. Jonathan, I said softly. I don't want you to just fight it. What do you want? He asked. I want to win it so thoroughly. I said that she never mistakes my kindness for weakness again. 2 hours later, I walked into Parker Bay headquarters. Not the factory. The corporate tower downtown, the one Gilbert and I bought the year sales first hit 8 figures. The one with 3 floors of executives who still underestimated me because I didn't wear a tie. They wouldn't today. I wore a gray suit sharp enough to cut glass, my hair pinned high, my heels echoing like gunshots across the lobby floor. My footsteps said, a woman has arrived. A woman who is done being betrayed. When I stepped off the elevator onto the executive floor, the chatter died instantly. People stood straighter. Some swallowed, a few pretended to check email. They all knew something had happened. I walked to my office, closed the door, and immediately buzzed HR. "Get me employee files for Sarah Thompson." I said, "Of course, Mrs. Parker, but she doesn't work for the company." "I'm aware," I said. "I need all incident reports from her time as a contractor." "She attended to brand events last month." "Oh," the HR director said, suddenly cautious. "Yes. There was a minor issue." "Send it up," I said. 5 minutes later, a file landed in my inbox. A minor issue, my ass. Sarah had verbally harassed one of my female supervisors at the event drunk, demanding access to restricted areas, insisting she was practically family and soon to be running this place. I forwarded the file to Jonathan. Then I added, "Evidence. Build the case." He replied immediately, "With pleasure." At noon, Louise drove me to the courthouse for the first hearing. Press gathered like vultures on discount day. Cameras flashed. Microphones lunged toward me. Double quotes, "Mrs. Parker, are the rumors true your daughter is suing you? Did you cut her out of the will? Is Parker Bay unstable?" I smiled for the camera, slow, controlled, lethal. "Ladies and gentlemen," I said, "Parker Bay is thriving. My son is thriving. I am thriving. Anyone telling you otherwise is projecting." They shouted more questions, but I'd already walked inside. Andrea was waiting in the hallway with Victor at her side. She looked perfect, every hair lacquered into place, wearing a white suit so crisp it probably had opinions. "Mother," she said coldly. "Daughter," I replied with equal frost. We stared at each other for a long, tense moment, the woman I raised and the woman she chose to become. Her lawyer stepped forward. "Mrs. Parker, my client believes," I held up a hand. "No," I said. "If Andrea wants to accuse me of mental incompetence, she can use her own voice." Andrea's jaw tightened. "You changed your will to punish me." "No," I said. "I changed my will because someone tried to kill me." She flinched. Victor put a hand on her back. I smiled at him. "Tell me, Victor, did you coach her on this legal strategy, or did she come up with this all by herself? Because if it was your idea, you're slipping." His eyes narrowed. I leaned in. "You should have married a woman who knows when to stop," I whispered. "But I suppose that's hard when you keep choosing trophies instead of partners." He stiffened like I'd stabbed him between the ribs. Andrea looked between us, confused, suspicious. "Good. Let her wonder, let her stew in her own doubt." The bailiff opened the courtroom door. "Case of Hale versus Parker," he called. I breathed in, straightened my shoulders, stepped forward. My heels echoed across polished wood like the beginning of a war march, not a battle. Not a skirmish, a reckoning. The hearing was brutal, an early preview of a longer, uglier war. Andrea's attorney painted a picture of me as unstable, impulsive, vengeful. He claimed I was acting erratically, making rash financial decisions, alienating family. He even suggested I'd given money to strangers instead of my rightful heirs. I could have laughed. I didn't. I waited until it was my turn, and then I spoke. Calmly, clearly. With the authority of a woman who had nothing left to lose and everything left to protect. I presented lab reports, security footage, witness testimony, digital timestamps linking Andrea and Sarah's messages, HR incident reports, character references from 30 employees, evidence of 15 years of clean audits and financial stability. By the time I finished, the judge was looking at my daughter like she'd crawled out of a moral sewer. Andrea's face twisted not with guilt, but with panic. Victor's hands had curled into fists. Good. Let them sweat. When the hearing ended, the judge denied their emergency petition and set a formal review for the following month. A month I fully intended to use. As I left the courthouse, Ethan met me outside. He hugged me tightly. "I'm proud of you, Mom," he murmured. I hugged him back. But over his shoulder, I saw someone standing at a distance. Marisol. Watching. Concerned. Supportive, steady. And next to her, holding her hand, was Leo, staring at me like I was some kind of superhero. Maybe I was. And maybe it was time to start acting like one. For them. For myself. For the women who were tired of being underestimated. I squeezed Ethan's arm. "Let's go home," I said. As we walked toward the car, one final thought settled over me like a mantle I'd been avoiding for years. This family, the one being stitched together out of honesty and kindness, was worth fighting for. And my daughter, well, she was about to learn that when you try to destroy a strong woman, you don't weaken her. You forge her. If the hearing was the spark, what followed was the wildfire. Not the kind that consumes you, oh no. The kind you learn to use. The kind that clears the deadwood. When Ethan and I got home from court, Marisol had already cooked dinner. Roast chicken, potatoes, and green beans, seasoned the way only people who've learned to stretch spices know how to do, rich, layered, comforting. Leo set the table with the seriousness of a junior executive preparing for a board meeting. "Mrs. Parker," he said, once I sat down, "I made place cards." They were little folded pieces of construction paper with our names written in big block letters. Mine had a doodle of a fish wearing a crown. "Am I royalty?" I asked. "Yes," he said simply. "Queen of fish." I laughed so hard I nearly tipped over my water glass. "Don't worry, I sniff all my drinks now with the suspicion of a cat near a new sofa." Dinner was warm, steady. A bomb on a day full of venom. Afterward, Leo dragged Ethan into a game of cards while Marisol helped me wash dishes. "You looked so strong today," she said quietly, rinsing a plate. "I don't think I've ever seen someone hold themselves like that in front of people who wanted to tear them down." "That's age," I said. "After 55 you stop caring who approves and who clutches their pearls." She smiled faintly. "Do you think Andrea will stop?" "No," I said honestly. People who believe the world owes them something never stop. They escalate. A shadow flickered across her face. "And Victor, he'll retreat," I said, drying my hands. "Men like him don't attack directly when their prey bites back. They slink off and look for easier targets." She nodded, but I could tell she was still worried. I put a hand on her shoulder. "You're safe here," I said gently. "Leo is safe. I don't let harm reach the people I protect." Her eyes shimmered, but she blinked the tears away. "Thank you," she whispered. The next 2 weeks were strange, quiet, artificially quiet. Andrea tried to reach me twice more, once through her lawyer, once through a message left with my assistant. Both times were rejected faster than expired tuna, but silence from Andrea was like the eye of a hurricane. Luis doubled security around my home and the plant. Cameras were upgraded. Gate procedures tightened. Ethan rearranged his work schedule to be near me as often as possible, and I didn't argue. It felt good to have him close, like a warm guard dog with a finance degree. As for Marisol and Leo, they became part of the rhythm of my days. Leo rode his bike on my driveway. Marisol came by after work for coffee or dinner. Ethan hovered near her like someone who'd finally found the missing piece of his life and wasn't letting the wind take it. I'd never seen him so open, so grounded, so happy. And oh, it terrified me. Because whenever life gave me something good, Andrea usually set something on fire. But I was ready. I had a plan. A woman without a plan is prey. A woman with a plan is a storm. The formal review hearing arrived on a Tuesday morning, gray and cold, like it had been painted by a depressed watercolor artist. As Luis drove me to the courthouse, I watched people on the sidewalks rushing, late, juggling coffee and stress, and thought, these people have no idea a family war is unfolding in the next building. When we walked into the courtroom, the tension was thick enough to slice. Jonathan was at the table with his binder of evidence. Ethan sat behind me. Marisol was beside him, hands clasped tightly. Leo, bless him, was left at home with a babysitter because the courthouse was no place for a child to witness the ugliest parts of adulthood. Andrea entered in a cloud of expensive perfume and entitlement. Victor walked beside her, but a little behind, as though he'd finally realized being near her made him visible, and visibility was dangerous when a storm was coming. Her eyes locked on mine. But here's what surprised me. She looked afraid. Not angry. Not defiant, afraid. A tiny part of me, the foolish maternal part that still remembered her as a toddler, twisted at the sight. The rest of me stayed still. I didn't get this far by confusing pity with forgiveness. Her lawyer stood, ready to launch into a speech about a mother's decline and an estate in chaos. But before he could speak, Jonathan rose. "Your Honor," he said, "before this hearing begins, we would like to submit new evidence." The judge, an older woman with the world-weary patience of someone who has seen every family flavor of betrayal, nodded. "Proceed." Jonathan handed her a folder. Not the thick binder of receipts and reports. Just one folder, thin, precise, lethal. The judge opened it. Her eyebrows rose. Then her eyes widened. Then she looked up, sharp and alert. She turned to Andrea's lawyer. "Did you know about this?" The lawyer paled. I've never seen that before." Andrea stiffened. "What is it?" The judge's voice turned to ice. "Mrs. Hale, this document is an email from you to Ms. Thompson, your brother's former fiancée." Andrea's eyes went wild. "What email?" Jonathan folded his hands behind his back with satisfaction. "The one we obtained through a lawful subpoena of Ms. Thompson's phone after she gave written consent." I smiled, quietly, with teeth. The judge continued reading. "It explicitly outlines your plan to incapacitate your mother temporarily by introducing a chemical into her drink. You call it a mild dose to make her more compliant during estate discussions." A gasp rippled through the courtroom. Andrea's mouth dropped open. "That's not real." It is real," the judge said firmly. "It contains your email headers, your timestamps, your signature block." Andrea spun toward Victor. "You told me emails disappear," she hissed. "Oh. That was beautiful." Victor's face became a blank mask, the kind men wear when they're calculating how fast they can run from a sinking ship. Then the judge delivered the final blow. "This evidence alone would be sufficient for a criminal investigation." Silence, cold, total, ringing. Andrea shook her head violently. "No. No. It wasn't poison, it was just something to make her sick. I wasn't trying to." "To what?" I asked gently. "Kill me, ruin me. Push me out of my own life." She burst into tears, not the delicate kind used to manipulate men, but the raw, ugly kind of a trapped animal. The judge rapped her gavel. "This petition is not only denied," she said. "It is dismissed with prejudice. Furthermore, I am ordering that the evidence be forwarded to the district attorney for review." Andrea's scream echoed across the courtroom. "Mom! Stop them, please! Please!" I stood slowly, turned, faced her fully. She looked younger than I'd ever seen her. Barely more than that teenager who used to slam doors and demand the world revolve around her. "Mom," she sobbed. "Please. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to. Please don't let them." I walked toward her. Every step steady. Every step earned. When I reached her, I touched her cheek. "Child," I said softly, "you stopped being sorry the moment sorry meant giving up power." She shook violently. "But I will not save you from the consequences you built with your own hands." Her face crumpled. "Mom, I need you." "I know," I whispered. "And you will learn finally what happens when you break the one person who kept trying to love you." I stepped back. She reached for me. I let her hand fall. The bailiff approached her. Victor was already gone, slithered out of the room the moment things got ugly. Predictable. Coward. Andrea looked around desperately for anyone to rescue her. No one moved. Not even me. For the first time in her life, she stood alone. Outside the courthouse, the press exploded into questions, but I kept walking. Ethan caught up and wrapped an arm around my shoulders. "You okay?" he asked. "Yes," I said. "I'm okay." Marisol hugged me next. "You were incredible," she whispered. "And brave." "Brave is just what you call a woman who's tired," I said. "And I am very, very tired." Luis pulled the car around. Leo was inside. When he saw me, he scrambled into my lap the second I got in. "Are you okay?" he asked, worried, tiny hands on my cheeks. I kissed his forehead. "I am now." Ethan and Marisol climbed in behind us, and for a moment, the car felt full in a way I hadn't felt for years. Full of people who chose me. People I could trust. People who wanted me alive, not for my money, not for my name, but for me. We drove home in comfortable silence. When we reached the house, Ethan cleared his throat. "Mom," he said. "I want to tell her tonight." "Tell who what?" I asked. He swallowed. "Tell Marisol that I love her." There it was. The moment everything shifts. "And Leo?" I asked gently. "I love him too," he said, voice breaking just slightly. "I want to be his father." I smiled, soft and real, the kind that reaches the bones. "Then tell them," I said. "Tell them everything." He did. That night, under the twinkling lights of my backyard, Ethan confessed his heart to Marisol while Leo sat between us on the patio steps, swinging his legs happily. She cried. He cried. I cried. Leo did not cry. He announced, very loudly, "Does this mean I get two moms now?" Marisol laughed through her tears. "Maybe just one for now, baby." Leo turned to me. "Can I call you Grandma?" I looked at him. And I swear, my heart expanded so fast it hurt. "You can," I said, voice thick. "You absolutely can." He threw his arms around me. And in that moment, every broken piece inside me shifted into place. 2 months later, Ethan married Marisol in a small ceremony in my garden. No fireworks, no tabloids, no designer gowns, just real people, real vows. And food I burned slightly because I was crying too much. Leo stood proudly in a little vest, holding the rings. When Ethan kissed his bride, the boy whispered loudly, "I have a real family," and I knew this was the ending I deserved. Not the daughter who betrayed me. Not the man who tried to manipulate me. Not the world that tried to underestimate me. But this, a family built from courage, honesty, and choices made with love instead of greed. A family I'd fight for every day. A family that saved me just as much as I saved them.